Hey y'all, welcome back to Made It Out. You asked and we're here to deliver. Today we're talking about age gap relationships with Yasmin Coutinho. And Yasmin is a hoot. We talked about the best parts of being in an age gap relationship, the worst parts. We talked about the sex. There's a lot in this episode. I can't wait for you to hear it. Here we go.
Hi.
Hi. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We are talking about a much requested topic. Like all season last season, people were like, please talk about age gap relationships. And you just so happened to message me and be like, hey, I'm in a really interesting relationship.
Yeah.
Have me on the pod.
Yeah.
And here you are. And I'm so excited to hear all about it.
Yes. I am the expert of this topic. Inadvertently. Didn't mean to become it, but I'm the spokesperson of the age gappers.
I love it. Okay, so let's start with what is the age gap?
Yeah.
Tell us about your... Is it wife?
Wife. We're married now.
Oh my gosh,
Coco.
wife.
Yeah, we're married. So when I met her, I was 26. And just to give very brief context, I didn't know how old she was when I met her. She looks very young. I think you've met her at your party. Yeah. So obviously I'm just like, damn, this bitch is hot. And then, we were getting to know each other on the day. And I remember her saying that she had children who were similar age to me. And I was like, oh, how old are they? And she was like 24. And then I was like, how old were you when you had them?
You're inching.
Yeah, I'm like doing the math like on my calculator. And she said 24. So I'm like, 48. And it just so happened that my mother was 48 at the time.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, she's my mum's age. So yeah, so she's now 52 and I'm 29. I'm about to be 30. So there is like a 23 year
23
gap.
years.
Yeah.
Okay. Had you always dated older?
Absolutely.
How, that much older?
Oh no, I wasn't
Okay.
like 10 with a 33-year-old. At 5. No. Yeah, so I've always really been into, especially like growing up and, realizing that I was queer, gay, bi, whatever. I was really into older women. And usually it's funny because I remember thinking like usually people that did have that inclination had like mummy issues or stuff like that. And I was like, I don't have any of that. Like I have a really great relationship with my mum, my parents, and I just really liked older. Growing up, I was definitely with boys a lot. So I would say that I'm bisexual.
Okay.
But I never felt that deep love for anyone, for any boys. It was just purely physical. And, at 13, 14, you do go like round giving blowjobs. That's just what happens, But never loved any of them. And then finally at 18, I was in like a really healthy relationship with a girl. And that's when I came out to my parents and was like, I'm gay, I'm going to marry a woman, and, went through like the acceptance tour of telling everyone, the press tour, waving the flag. And then 2 years later at 20, I fell in love with a man.
Wow. Okay.
So then had to like do the press tour again. Of like,
Hold on.
we go back on tour and say, I'm not gay, everyone. I guess I'm bisexual. So that was a surprise because honestly, like my whole life, since I was as young as I can remember, I thought I was gay.
Wow.
So falling in love with a man was definitely a blip in the matrix, definitely a surprise. I truly loved him. Like he's a great guy, like really good relationship. But
Okay.
I think as, a lot of people do also agree and think, I think sexuality is a spectrum. And although I've definitely come to accept that I'm bisexual, I think I'll always prefer women. And I think what happened in that relationship is, I think it was like 6 years down the line, I really, really craved women. And, we tried to figure things out. And he was obviously just like, no, I want you for me. And so I was like, okay, well, then I should probably go back to women. And that's when I met my now wife. And it's actually a crazy story because when I met her, that relationship with the man was kind of on the rocks. We were definitely like breaking up, that sort of time frame. And I had gone, it was during the pandemic, and I had gone to Hawaii to eat, pray, love, like figure this shit out, figure other things in my life out. And I remember vividly in Hawaii, like I saw this lesbian couple, and this is when I was still with my boyfriend, and I was like, it's so weird how two things can be true at once, where like you can be so in love with this person, but really want something else. And I saw this lesbian couple and I was like, that's just what I want. And, you know, they were really girly. I've always been into like girly women. And I just really saw what I wanted and was like, it's not going to happen, you know? And then.
Wait, pause. This is interesting because it's sounding like you had a harder time accepting that you might be bisexual than you did having. That's such an interesting thing.
I think the reason is like me being gay before I realized I could love men. It was the one thing in my life that I was so sure of. And actually I was the 16-year-old at school. I grew up in a very traditional sort of conservative area in England, you know, going to school where like we didn't have gay people at school. Even the boys who were clearly gay were like, I love girls. So, but I was just like this very confident 16-year-old, 17-year-old being like, I love women. Like, and people were able to really accept me for it. I think I was very privileged and, you know, I don't for a second, like kind of disregard that I was very girly. And I think people may find that easier to like digest. And I think that was a huge privilege for me, which is sad. So I was just so confident. That was the one thing in my life that I was like, I have this really going for me.
Yeah.
And then when I fell in love with a man, I was like, no, I don't want to be this way.
It's just interesting because mostly on this podcast, it's like, oh, I told my parents I was bisexual, you know, but actually now I'm gay. So that's just a really interesting point.
And again, even when I was with him and I loved him so much and we had a solid relationship, I would see lesbians and I would see women and be like, damn, like I wish I was that bitch, you know? So that was also a journey in itself of like really realizing that two things can be true at once. And for me, it just wasn't sustainable, where I think I really realized that my spectrum is more, I would rather be with a woman and I really crave them after a while. So I was in Hawaii eating, praying, loving, like figuring shit out. It was the pandemic. I was working remote and I was speaking to my colleague. I was working at Playboy and all the girls working at Playboy were gay. So we were like having this group chat. I think we were talking about women or your type or whatever. And I remember I had this weird screenshot on my phone, and please, like, don't ask me how I got it, but it was from like a porn video.
Okay.
And it was like these women's hands on like a girl's butt, and the hands were clearly like an older woman. And I screenshot the hands, and I was like, guys, all I want is these hands on my butt.
You manifested through porn.
And then the next day, when I met my wife, she had the hands. I was like, these are my perfect hands. I love hands. I just like, it's not a fetish, but I do look at people's hands, and she had the hands. And I was like, wow, I am powerful.
There are many ways to manifest. It doesn't always have to be journaling.
Just screenshot what you want from porn. But this is the problem, is that she's she's outdoorsy, but she's quite girly. So, you know, I met her and I wasn't instantly like a lesbian. I was just like, wow, this woman's really beautiful, really hot. And just, I mean, she's a delight. Like, she's the most amazing thing ever. And we were in the car on the way to Hana, and I remember just spilling my whole life to this woman, like telling her about my boyfriend and my sexuality. And she finally said, oh, like, we have very similar stories, where I've always been with men and women, and the last person I was with was a man, but like before him, it was always women. And I was like, ding, 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 ding.
It's on.
Yeah. And so we spent a beautiful day in Hana, and I just completely fell in love with her. And the age thing came up, and that didn't, you know, I didn't know I'd also be with her. So the age thing was just like, okay, cool.
Right.
The problem was that I was leaving the next day. Yes. So before my flight, we were like, let's go get a coffee. And from her perspective, it was all very friendly. Like, she did not know I was flirting with her. We went for a coffee. It was like the best 2 hours of my life. Decided I really fancied her. I said, I have to delay my flight. Like, I just need to see this woman again.
Oh, this is so gay.
It gets worse. It gets worse. So I delayed my flight. And yeah, we went out, had a beautiful time. It was pandemic time, so we had masks. And I just remember getting really drunk with her, and outside the hotel, like, I pulled her by the mask and I kissed her. And then she was like, oh,
a gay COVID love story.
Yeah. And then she realized things.
Okay, so now we're in a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
So met her, kissed her, pulled her by the mask. Other things happened. Decided I liked her. said to her, I'm going to go back to LA. I have some shoots, I have some work stuff, but wait for me. Like, I'm going to come back for you. And obviously she's older, she's wiser. She was like, okay. Like, she honestly thought she'd never see me again. I get to LA, I ship my car to Maui.
Oh.
First thing I did, car shipping Maui.
Oh my God.
Shipped my car to Maui, rented a studio down the road from her, and showed up 4 weeks later.
Holy shit. And you've been together ever since?
Yeah.
Oh my
That
God.
shit works, ladies.
Wow. It's the ultimate U-Haul.
Yeah.
U-Haul to Maui. Okay. So at what point, or if ever, was there a time where you were like,
Holy fuck.
the age might be
honestly
a lot.
It's interesting you asked this because I don't think that moment has ever happened. I think the only moment where I was really like, shit, could this be an issue, was when telling my parents that I was now seeing someone and they were a bit older, i.e. mum, she's older than you. I'm trying to remember. I think I blocked it out of my mind when I told her. And they were so great about it because I think if they had any concerns or issues or like, you know, questionings, they didn't tell me. I think they probably kept it to themselves.
My parents always say that that's like the best way to be a parent. It's just like, don't react.
Yes. Yeah.
And just have your reactions behind closed doors.
So I honestly don't remember like the day or the time when I made that, you know, declaration to my mother and my father. But I think I was scared before, you know, just of like what they would say, especially because, you know, it is just like my mum's age.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also what helped is like after a while they met her. I mean, I literally introduced her to them 2 months later. She came to my master's graduation at USC. Mum, dad, wife to be.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think once they started to get to know her, A, they realized how she's an incredible person regardless of age. And B, she's very youthful in the sense that, you know, she definitely physically doesn't appear her age, mentally, spiritually, like she is just a bundle of youth and joy. And I mean, if you were to do some physical tests on us, she is probably way younger than I am because she's so healthy. I'll probably die before her. So once, you know, you start introducing it to people and then they're like, oh yeah, this shit doesn't matter.
Is there ever a time where the age difference shows? Like age difference shows like in music or?
100 on the surface level, every second of every day.
Really?
Because not only there is an age gap, a generational gap, but she's also a very different person to me. We truly are yin and yang. She's a school teacher. She doesn't have any social media, nor has she ever had any social media.
Oh my gosh.
Like
that's wild.
No Facebook, no, like truly.
That's like speaking a different language almost.
And I love it because I'm obviously in the weeds of this industry and social media. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to talk to her about TikTok and she just won't get it. So sad. Yeah. She also definitely has an issue with my social media usage. I think like wildly that has been a topic of fights because she really just wants me to be present with her away from technology. And I'm just like on Instagram stories.
All day, every day. Yeah. I mean, that's like a world difference.
Yeah.
Like it's almost impossible, I feel like, to not be in our, it's just like how we connect to people and how we stay connected with our generation, I feel like. So it's just an interesting, like.
Yeah, I have to make her Facebook marketplace ads.
Oh my gosh.
She's like, can you put this up there? And I'm like, fucking hell, just get Facebook.
That's actually really
I'm like,
funny.
how do you live through life without Messenger?
What do you think the biggest misconceptions are about age gap relationships?
I love this. I think, and I thought theoretically, I've thought a lot about this being in it. I think it's the dynamics, right? And I think in homosexual relationships, you often find more age gap relationships than in heterosexual relationships.
Ooh, why do you think that is?
I don't know, but I feel like there maybe are more, and I think maybe it is even more accepted. But I think to your question, the dynamic is the misconception. So you might look at someone with an age gap and think, oh, the older person is the provider. The younger person is just with them for, you know, something maybe financially that they can offer or something more that they can offer. And sometimes that's just not the case. You know, maybe the younger person is offering that older person something in that dynamic that isn't normative. And I think I see a lot of discourse on the internet, you know, when there are commentary about people's age gaps relationships, especially when they started it a little bit younger at 18 or 17 or 19, being like, you were groomed. But, you know, at someone who is still in that relationship at 30, they can now take accountability for whether they were groomed or not and are now in that relationship, right? And it's important for them to take that accountability at an older age. Obviously, there are predators, and I'm not saying that, you know, everything out there is consensual and ethical, but I also feel that age gap relationships do get so negatively talked about because of those situations. So I will say that not all relationships are from a place of, you know, grooming or from a place of like, you know, being used. I think some people just fucking like old people. Like, I'm like, that is my king. Like, I've always been into older people. Like, I'm not out here, you know, getting used or getting like, it's just what I like. And I think it's very hard to rewrite the script. And I see so much negative talk on the internet about it. And yeah, I think it's very inflammatory.
Do you face a lot of judgment, do you feel like?
No, I don't think outwardly we've faced any judgment from, like, I think our family and friends haven't, unless it's behind closed doors and behind our backs. But also, again, we're privileged in that she doesn't look her age. We are privileged in that we're both girly, so we can pass. You know, when we're out, people often do, even though she does look young, sometimes we do get like, oh, is this your mum? And then we make out. We've gotten that a fair bit.
I mean, Matilda and I get that.
Oh,
it's the
that
weirdest,
is weird.
It's the weirdest shit. I think people just don't know how to interpret like
a dynamic that is, Also, we look nothing alike, so that's bizarre. So we don't get judgment. I think but people are probably not saying it to our faces. Also, I'm a bitch. Like, what are they going to say? I'll just punch you.
What about shared social circles? Because I can imagine like she has this whole life
her
of
friends
people
are 80.
that are her age. Yeah. Well, like, well, I mean, like
her friends are like 75. No, truly, there are some.
And it's like, it has to be interesting kind of mixing and blending your lives together.
I will say I'm someone that has always had older friends. Like even when I was, you know, in my teens, I was friends with 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds. So for me, that is like very normal. Like I can hang out with friends that are like in their 50s and their 60s and it's fine for me. I think she does question some of my friends who are in their 20s and 30s. I think she's just in such like a different place in her life. But she's obviously amazing about it and like will still hang out with us. She says to me, though, it's weird being the one that's older in that situation. I've always been the cool one, the young one. And actually, when I'm with you and your friends, like sometimes I do feel like, wow, I'm really older, you know?
Yeah.
We have very, very different friends, separate friends. And then we have our mutual friends who are somewhere sort of in between. But I think also in relationships, like I've never been someone who has had many lesbian friends. I've never been in the lesbian circles. I've had maybe like a couple here, a couple there, but I've never been in like a lesbian friendship group. So in this relationship with her, it's almost like we are a hetero couple that like, you know, you have your girl time, you have your, we have very separate friends.
Yeah, that is interesting because I would say like the reason I feel like I would have a struggle with it is because our lives are so conjoined. It's like, I think I have like 3 friends that are my own friends.
Yeah, it's not.
Maybe Matilda the same too. It's like it is an interesting dynamic to where but I guess if your life is set up that way where you have different friend circles, then it's not really.
Yeah. And also what helps is that, you know, after I moved to Hawaii for her, I could only stay in Hawaii for about a year during the pandemic. And then I had to kind of come back to LA, go back into office. And since about 2022, we've had a place here and a place there. And we live pretty separately for the most part. And
wow.
Yeah. And then we see each other like 2 weeks out of the month. It's not our choice. Obviously, we would rather be together every single day. But having said that, I also think it's been like a blessing. I think we both really enjoy our independence and having our alone time and having our friend time. And then every time we come together since 2022, it has been like we're on our honeymoon.
Yeah.
It's been really, really great for us. I don't know, you know, the future of like if we're going to be together in one place, but so far it has worked really well.
When it comes to future planning, was there ever any issue there? Like, did you ever want kids and then maybe she doesn't want more kids?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So obviously with the age gap, I remember the first night we spent together, like properly, I remember her saying, do you want kids? Because if you do, I can't give you that anymore. I mean, physically she could, but she obviously doesn't want any more kids. And if so, like, I don't want this to progress. I was just so obsessed and in love with her in that moment that I was like, don't worry, like, it's fine. I'm just the sort of person, and I think my friends could attest to this, that I don't want to delay. I don't want to like put something off that I'm enjoying in the moment because of future. I mean, I could die tomorrow, right? Like, and not having done something I really love. So whilst I have people in my life who are like, you need to think about the future, like being with someone in this moment is not going to work because of what you might want in 10 years. To me, like, that's just, we can figure that out in 10 years, you know? And I was always very open with her about that, where I was like, obviously some people might have an issue with that because they're like, well, I don't want to cross that bridge in 10 years. I want to know now. She was also happy to just be like, I agree. Like, let's just go with the flow and see. Thankfully, I don't know if I want kids or not. I am freezing my eggs this year in the case that I want to. I've never had a maternal instinct. I've never dreamt of being a mother. Like, it's the feeling of wanting kids has never hit me. I have a 9-year-old brother, so like he's my kiddo. So I think we're good for now. You know, if one day I wake up and say, geez, I want a baby, then I guess she can look after them.
Yeah, she's going to have to deal.
Yeah, I'm joking.
What do you think the biggest challenges have been?
Where do we start? I think this is the first relationship I've had that has really shown me what love is because it's been so hard. So, and I wouldn't say the challenges have been due to our age gap. I think it's just a more mature, grown-up relationship where we've been through stuff, and she's been a mirror to me of shit that I really have to sort out within myself, and, you know, really understanding why I act certain ways. I've always been very anxiously attached, and she's really shown me like where that stems from. And, you know, I had certain expectations of her and how I wanted her to show up in the relationship. And when she wasn't giving me that, instead of me being like, well, you know, I'm going to bounce, I had to be like, why do I expect that? And should I expect that? And like, where can we meet in the middle? So it's been very challenging just because also we are both from very, very wildly different lifestyles and backgrounds. She's one of 6 siblings. I was an only child for 20 years. I literally like was brought up to think I'm God's gift. And she was one of 6. And, you know, she's American, I'm Brazilian, culturally such different cultures. Like, there has been a plethora of challenges, but instead I think I've always bounced with people, you know, just said, okay, like, this is not going to work for me. Goodbye. Next, goodbye. And I think because I love her so much and she enriches my life so much, I made the decision to stick with it. And we got couples therapy as well for lots of our issues. I think we're just so different. Like, we are night and day in terms of who we are, our personality. What keeps us together, though, is our values. Like, we have very similar values in terms of how we want to live our life and the things that we want to prioritize and the things that we love. That does keep us together. And that's why we've, you know, never walked away, because we're just like, you know, we really are meant to be together, but we are such different people. So how is this possible? So really looking internally, going to therapy, really not undermining also how our upbringing and childhood has shaped us. And for me personally, obviously I can't really speak for her, but her age and wisdom, like, it's just so enriching to my life. And I've always had, especially being an only child, I've always had older role models, especially like my parents, like my biggest role models. But there's certain things that, you know, I don't run to my mum about, and I don't cry to my mum about. And just seeing my wife's perspective on the world, and my wife has gone through such a hard life and so much trauma that I haven't, you know. And so really being able to learn from her in those kind of really deep and hard moments that life brings has been just insanely amazing.
Yeah, it is interesting. I can imagine, like, I feel like even from just 20 to 30, or like in my 20s to now in my 30s, I'm going through such a like transformative time of where different things matter to me, and friendships are changing, and my relationships with my family are changing. And it's just like, it could be really nice, because a lot of the times I think Matilda and I are looking at each other like, is this normal? Like,
Yeah.
is what we're going through, is everybody else feeling this way, you know? But to have someone to be like, no, it's fine. Like, you know, and I'm sure she's gone through that in every decade. I'm sure. So that's got to be great.
And actually, she says her 50s are the best.
Wow.
I'm excited. And one thing I will say too is, for example, going back to the issues that we've had and my expectations, I've always been with people that really gave me what I want. Like if I have a set of list of things that like I want from people, it's like calling me all day, every day, telling me they love me and then I'm hot. And like, you know, like I had these expectations of like, I want you to show up in this way. When she didn't, I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why aren't you sending me cute emojis all day, every day, telling me I'm the hottest shit on earth and that you love me more than life itself? And she's just like, she's like, you're crazy. She would show up in different ways that at the time in the beginning of our relationship, I really took for granted. And I was like, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do these set things.
Yeah.
And as we developed and as we went through more things, I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't find these qualities that you have in other people. Those people that might, you know, text me all day and say these things that I want and show up in these ways that I want. But what she provides is so much deeper and more valuable than the things that I was kind of expecting her to do. For example, you know, how she shows up to my family and just like, she's so good with my family. And I've always valued family. And that's something that's so big to me. And I see her with like my grandma and I'm like, wow, yeah, I don't think I could find someone that would be this patient or, you know, this loving and this accepting of all this drama and shit. And so really not overlooking as like, maybe like recalibrating your standards and expectations of what you want in someone.
Yeah. I feel like I've said this a lot on this podcast, but I think when you really do find the right relationship, it's not the easiest relationship. It's going to be the hardest relationship because it's like now I really have to face myself and work through all those fucking years of shit that I've been trying to avoid. Now I have to, if I want to be with this person, I have to work it out.
It's been fucking hard, but also the most enriching because of it.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, there is a stereotype about libido dropping after a certain age. Is that true?
No. I will say this.
Okay.
I'm Brazilian. I have a fucking high sex drive to the point that even with the man could not keep up. Like I'm just, yes, I'm up there with needs. And I will definitely say she like can match that. And that's also why we've been able to stick together.
There you go.
So I can't speak for her, but yeah, I think it's been fine.
Wow, Mythbusters right here on
Mythbusters. Like, again, get her in. I don't know. Maybe she's just doing it for me. She's like literally so tired.
That's why she needs that 2 weeks apart. She's like,
like when we're not together, she's asleep for 2 weeks. But also she's so much healthier than me. Like whenever we go for a hike, like I am so unfit and she's so athletic and like, you know, being in Hawaii, when we go stand up paddling, like she is paddling and I'm sat there like
she's in shape.
Yeah, like her health is at a much better range than mine. I do think, you know, sometimes I know a lot of age gap couples and I think we do think about the future of, you know, when you're 50, will you still want to be, you know, with me? But then I look at Sarah Paulson and I'm like, bitch is doing it.
So true.
So, and also as you get older, your like relationships change, you know, it's not about the everyday sex. You're a companionship. And, you know, by that point, you hope that you've constructed something really amazing. Yeah. Obviously there are challenges and there might be challenges for us, you know, let's say if I want kids or whatever it is, but, I definitely don't, you know, I'm not losing sleep over it. Absolutely not.
I have one more question for you.
Love.
I ask everybody, what are you working on in therapy?
Well, right now I'm not doing therapy.
That's okay. Whatever you're working on, just like self-development wise.
I think that I really struggle with, and this isn't to do with like relationships, but more personally, like goals in the future. I'm a very nostalgic person and I'm like obsessed with my past. I've like had a really good life.
Aww.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone you speak to are like, I'm so traumatized. And I'm here like, la la la. I love old people.
That's great. I love that perspective too.
Yeah. And so because of that, I I find it really hard to think about the future and things I want and goals, and B, even like being in the present a little bit and like enjoying the present, because I just like, I'm like, oh, remember when I did that, or remember. So I think what I'm working on is really thinking about like how I can develop year after year without just having like spontaneously good moments and spontaneously like good achievements. I want to plan them out a little bit more. I don't know how to do that. People say you should get an iPad or a notebook. Any tips, let me know.
I love that. Put them in the comments, please.
Put them in the comments. Goal setting 101. I kind of let life guide me.
Yeah.
And maybe I should do it the other way around, where like I should think about some things I want to do. That's been my focus I'm about to turn 30. So that's my focus going into my 30s, is like making some plans.
I love that. I think the way you're living is a beautiful way to live, like intuitively. And
yes.
I tend to be like that too. I'm not like a big planner. Matilda's admin. I tell everybody that, like, she's the reason we keep on track. And, you know, there's probably a good balance, but I don't think don't lose that.
Thank you.
Intuitive.
And I agree, especially because I think one of the qualities I like most in myself is that I do truly live like every day is my last, and really like being grateful and positive about life. And I mean, I'm still very sensitive and get really stressed easily, but just trying to plan a little bit more. Let's see what I can do.
All right. I can't wait to see.
I'll show you my notes.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so open. Can you tell people where to find you?
Yeah, I'm actually quite like, I've been taking a note from my wife's life, and I'm a little bit private, but you can follow me on Instagram, Yasmin_Coutinho. That's about it.
Perfect.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn. Send me a recommendation.
Okay. We play a game.
Okay.
It's called You Haul or You Ghost.
Oh, I know this game.
Yes.
I know this one.
No in between. Perfect in every way, except for this one thing.
Okay.
She doesn't like to share food.
You ghost. Ew.
Okay, I kind of feel this way too, but Matilda is a little weird about sharing food. Well, okay, so like if we're at a meal with a group, she does not like to share plates. She wants to have her food.
Ghost that bitch. Like, what? Who is that?
But like, I pick off her plate and it's fine. And she doesn't care about that. But what does bother me is like, I feel like, try this, try my food is such a love language.
Yeah.
Especially like in my family, that's what we do. We're like, oh, here, eat this. But she doesn't like to mix flavors. So she never wants to try my food.
Like, who hurt her? Like, are you okay?
Have you always been that way? It's such a weird thing that I hate. Okay, but I'm you hauling, I guess. But you ghost, I think, is the right answer.
You go. Sorry, I'm told.
Okay, this comes from a true source. I heard that this is a real thing that people do.
Okay.
She has a soup fetish and likes to eat soup out of your orifices.
I mean, she could eat anything out of me, but soup is probably no. You go soup.
Think about like a stew.
Yeah, you like, who is this? No, you ghost. Absolutely not. No.
But let us know if you're into that. Maybe we have some listeners who like the soup fetish. I don't know, but that's a you ghost for me. I do not like to mix food and sex. That's not a thing for me.
Bit of chocolate?
No. I don't know why. I'm like, oh no, let's keep that out.
Yeah, soup's a bit much. Bit of a stretch.
What's the weirdest food you would take into the bedroom?
I don't think anything's that weird apart from soup.
I found the weirdest thing.
Like, we stop there.
Yeah,
I'll take anything. Soup's a bit too liquidy. Anything that isn't a liquid, I'll do.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Okay, what about this one's kind of me. She's constantly yawning.
You go. Sorry, but why?
Savage. Okay, to defend myself, recently, Matilda, I'm always yawning.
Okay.
And recently, Matilda told me, we've been together 3 years, she just told me that it really fucking bothers her.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm absolutely not surprised.
Like, oh my God. Okay, but then I was like, okay, let me do some research and see like what's wrong with me.
You're tired.
I'm just fucking tired, bitch. No, it's a stress regulator. It's like your body's way of de-stressing. What? Matilda's giving me a look right now. She's like, no, it's not.
I think that's a little weird. I think
I could have heart disease or diabetes. There's like all these things that it could be.
Yeah, I'll take the heart disease without the yawns.
Yes, it's brutal. I love it. We are ghosting everybody in 2025.
Out, everyone's out.
Thank y'all for listening to today's episode. As always, help us spread the gay agenda by writing an Apple review, rating us on Spotify, and sharing with everyone you've ever met. And if you haven't yet, join our subscription community, Made It In, for exclusive Made It Out media shows, content, and chat rooms at madeitout.supercast.com. Made It Out is produced by Matilda Jordan and worked on solely by lesbians.
Lick my ear slowly, whisper my favorite food, and then fuck me hard.
Soup.